Welcome back, guys. On the desk with me is Cappuccino, and for round 3, we have a spicy match for you. We have Sweetie, the Battle of Gods champion, and a two-time Monthly Cup champion, going up against newcomer Alvar. Now, Cappuccino, you know a lot about Sweetie. You guys have been teammates in the past, and maybe in the present, I'm not even sure anymore. Tell me a little bit about him.
Yeah, he's still a teammate of mine. I don't do as much scrimming against him as I used to. Back when I used to participate in the monthlies myself, I would scrim a lot against Sweetie, and we were good practice partners. But lately, I haven't been doing it as much. I'm actually really curious to see what he's brought to the monthly cup. I'm not actually sure his lineup, but I know he likes a lot of the same decks I do. I know he really likes playing the yellow tempo deck, so I'm personally really hoping that we see some yellow tempo rather than like the yellow events deck. By yellow tempo, I mean Sagittarius, Prayer, Archer, maybe some Zealous Crusaders and Chargers. Go for a little bit more of that Zealous Crusader Prayer synergy.
Hey, I'm a
So that's
big
kind
fan
of
of
what I'm
that deck
hoping for.
myself, man. I play that deck a lot. If Yellow Control was viable, I'd probably play Yellow Control instead, but Yellow Tempo is like my go-to yellow deck. I'm not a fan of events personally, but I like the swing and the snowball that Yellow Tempo offers, and the card draw, and the Crusaders is good stuff. Any other decks you think he might bring? Do you think he's going to stay meta, or is he going to branch out to other decks?
I imagine that we'll see Blue Jump out of him, just because Blue Jump is such a strong deck as a monocolor. And then he's always been very, very strong at playing Green Red and even some non-standard style versions of Green Red. I know he was running Feed. The French community usually all put Feed the Forest in together randomly, and then like that became meta before no one was doing it. And Sweetie put them in like right around the same time as a couple of the other popular players did, and it's interesting how it's changed Green Red, and he usually plays it a lot more aggressive than other players, with going super aggressive with land progression, even having Earthcraft in the deck. So I think Crackthorn, probably Blue Jump, and then I'm hoping yellow events with the Archer Zealous synergy.
What about Alvar? Do you know anything about this player? He's a complete mystery to me.
Yeah, I gotta say it's a bit of a mystery to me. I think I've seen him a couple times on ladder, but not enough to remember what his decks were.
All right, so we're going to have a champion in Sweetie going up against Man of Mystery Alvar. Let's see if Alvar can take a win here. And the casters for this game are going to be Zolo and Scorch. Take it away, guys.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, it's really a case of the old versus the new here, Sweetie. Coming in against Alvar. Just in my notes, I have Alvar played in the qualifier number 2 last weekend. Basically went 3-2 in the series that he played in, so decently enough of a performance there. But both of these players qualified through ladder, so hopefully should get a good match. What do you think here, Zologram?
Yeah, I think any player that qualifies through ladder, first of all, has to be a strong player with a good grasp on the meta game. Otherwise, it's very tough to hold on to your spot in the top 10. One thing I'd like to say as we get into the series is that I enjoy how Capu can get excited about seeing a yellow tempo instead of a yellow event and a setup with green crackdown and blue jumpers, which I would consider to be like the cookie cutter setup you can bring in this current meta game. So personally, I'm hoping we are going to see a little bit more out of the box thinking. And I think as we start out, Sweetie doesn't disappoint me at least, because he's bringing the Shaitan Assassin, which most likely hints at as also the Elder at the Sacrifice deck. So probably mono yellow Sacrifice, which I haven't seen in the tournament so far.
Yeah, as much as we've been talking about kind of the main decks that we were expecting to see and the real powerhouses of the lineups that you can create with those more powerful decks, Sweetie going really off the board here with the sack, so far leaning towards more of just a mono yellow with the demons in there as well. I wouldn't generally expect to see those in something that's like a green yellow sack, so we'll have to see what comes out over the course of the game here. But of course, as I say that, we see a Bone Collector, so generally would lead into being a green yellow sack, of course, going for those late game soul eaters. Now, what would you think of the end game for both of these decks of blue versus green yellow sack? Who gets the advantage here?
I'm really intrigued by Sweetie's deck because it's not a classic green-yellow sacrifice deck either, because those don't run Shade and Demon, but it's also not mono-yellow. So there's really no telling, for me at least, what kind of cards he's included in his deck, and I'm really looking forward to finding out what kind of other drops he has. Generally, I think Sacrifice, if you get to the late game, is a very favored deck. But on the other hand, you always have blue jumpers with the discounted Colossi, so I think it's going to be a tough one in the late game for both of these decks to close it out.
Yeah, I think as long as Sweetie can kind of hold his own for the early game here against all of these jumpers. Of course, Green Yellow Sack runs small creatures, something like the Village Elder that we see, even the Bone Collector once it comes down. If Alvar is able to get the right positions with his Battletoads, with his Ninja Toad, he's going to be able to get very efficient clears early on and really snowball some board advantage. But that Shaitan Demon, even the Shaitan Assassin, may end up leading into some good clears here for Alvar. So just big decisions for Sweetie in the early game versus whatever can come out from Alvar's creatures.
Yeah, I think it's like you said, basically. If Sweetie manages to hang on and doesn't get too much of a disadvantage in the early game, he should be fine for the late game. But on the other hand, Blue always has like Frogified, possibly Mirror Phantasm to deal with these big Soul Eaters. So I think we are looking at what is possibly going to be a very close matchup between these two decks.
Yeah, that's another big point. As much as we can talk about what can happen in the early game, for the late game, you have Last Nightmares, even these Shaitan Assassins coming out from Sweetie to deal with the big Colossus that are going to come down from Alvar, versus the Frogifies that are going to be available to deal with those Soul Eaters, or even just a Bone Collector if that can get snowballing. So very important for Sweetie to hopefully get some other creature going where Alvar has to use one of those control effects of the transformation instead of saving it up.
Yeah, and I think if Alvar manages to clear off the Bone Collector with the Ninja Toad, that'd be amazing for him. So unless Sweetie is going to sacrifice anything close to the Bone Collector, which he's not set up to do, yeah, I think we're definitely looking at the Ninja Toad play possibly this turn, because you definitely want to get rid of the Bone Collector as early as possible, because it can get really big in a sacrifice deck pretty fast.
Yeah, looks really strong here. Sweetie will need something like a Soul Drain or Wind Soldier, which when Ninja Toad has already cleared the Bone Collector, means it's a very inefficient follow-up for Sweetie to clear that. And doing it in the right order here, where it can kill off the Bone Collector before that gains any power, can jump the Triton Warrior up and kill off the Demon here, and then Alvar controls the left side, profit in between the wells to double collect. You have your Ninja Toad to move around and cause havoc against whatever Sweetie's follow-up play is. Just looks so good at this spot for Alvar, of how quick he was able to get in at these creatures.
Yeah, and he's going for the Aurora even to keep even more pressure on the board. I kind of like that, because as a green-yellow sacrifice deck, they often don't run Soul Drain just because they want to stuff in as many creatures as possible into their deck. So getting rid of these small, low HP creatures on the opponent's side is actually not that easy for a green-yellow deck a lot of the time.
This is a situation where you'd love to have a Ground Shaker or a Famine here to clear off all of these 1 health remaining creatures. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is Green-Yellow Sack doesn't run a lot of smaller removal. Soul Drain's inefficient here, Wind Soldier's inefficient here, and only clears off 1 creature out of what Alvar has of a few powerhouses at this point. So you can spread out that power as much as you can. You can get the most value out of each of your creatures. So looks like a really strong position. We're going to see that Shaitan Assassin come down. Where does the buff go? Reasonable enough there. I think you would rather have it have gone onto the Village Elder, because the Assassin's going to take 2 creatures with it anyway, just because of the Death Touch, whereas the buff here is essentially lost. Village Elder would have been able to possibly do something with that buff.
Yeah, definitely agree. It would have been better. And as we can see in Alvar's hand, he even has double Battletoad, which is basically the perfect card that you want against a green-yellow sacrifice deck, because they have so many small creatures that you need to mow through before you can get to any advantageous position on the board. And Battletoads are just perfectly set up to do just that, or even to get the protection of an assassin and stuff like that.
Looks like Alvar's just going to take the trade there. Says, you know what, I got enough value out of those creatures that I already played. They're just going to be fine to clear into the assassin there and keep this next wave of creatures as healthy as possible of the 4/4, and then reinforce with a 4/5 Mystic Beast. Going to be able to clear whatever Sweetie plays at this stage.
Yeah, that at this point, board pressure and Faeria-wise, Sweetie is in a different position, in a difficult position, and he's also lacking the sack outlets. He has 2 creatures that he wants to die, but he doesn't have anything to sack them into, so he's definitely hoping to draw into something in his following turn, I think, because he's already looking at a pretty steep clock just in terms of board pressure.
Sweetie is actually almost in a position where you can try to go for a race here, set up double Soul Eater next turn if you're able to draw into one, but they're only 5/5s at this point. It's not going to be enough. If you're looking at like an 8/8 Soul Eater and you drop 2 of them, 1 sacrifice and you end the game. But in this situation, it's just not going to be enough, and we're going to see Alvar actually switch to the aggression there, maybe even go Trainer into Battletoads and try to set up lethal next turn.
Yeah, absolutely, and this is looking really strong for Alva, and I'm a bit afraid that the Assassin might just be 1 turn too late.
Yeah, Assassin, like we kind of touched on, can get a good chunk of value depending on what the creatures that come out from the blue are here, but yeah, just nothing you can do at this point. Assassin's going to sacrifice the Elder just for the extra card draw, see what you can get here. Gets another Assassin, but that's just going to have no way to deal with all of these creatures here. I think leaving the Ghoul alive for the body block might have been enough. Gonna go for the Soul Eater body block though.
Interesting. I think it's definitely the best. He definitely made the best out of a bad situation. Because if Alva doesn't manage to close out the game this turn or next turn maybe, which he might not even be able to, it looks like Sweetie could potentially come back, but we see he still has a Ninja Toad in hand and he can definitely deal 8 damage this turn, so with any, like with second Trainer or something, that's lethal. So yeah, it's still a pretty tough spot for Sweetie to be in, but at least he's set up to kind of try and make a comeback next turn.
Yeah, I don't see a way to clear off enough here and find some form of lethal through the Ninja Toad play. Big thing though, Sweetie does have enough forces on the board to possibly solidify or some form of a comeback next turn. I just don't think it's enough at this stage.
Yeah, I've just been counting. I mean, Sweetie with his 3 creatures can at most kill 3 creatures, and even if Alva just goes for 8 damage this turn, he would still have enough steam left in the tank to finish out the game next turn. But he even goes for the trade and the 8 damage, so if he drops, he goes for the preemptive thing, basically. So any kind of creature now, any kind of damage will finish out the game. Because Green Yellow Sacrifice generally doesn't that game either.
And those triggers means it's another Soul Eater, not what Sweetie wants to see at this stage. Wants something like a Soul Drain or even a Wind Soldier to kill off the Ninja Toad in the middle there. But Alvar able to take the game very nicely, just able to get that aggression in before Sweetie was really able to set up with all of his creatures. Really nicely played.
One thing I'd like to point out is that I'm not really sure I agree with running the Sacrifice deck as your starting deck, because I think the Sacrifice deck is a deck that is very strong in some matchups and kind of weak against other matchups. So it's a deck that I think is best to have in hand for after you've seen what deck your opponent has brought, and not the best necessarily to open with, because as we saw against like blue jumpers, they are so fast and aggressive to set up that you have a tough time getting into the late game where you want to be with the Soul Eaters.
Yeah, they're just able to get at you so quickly there. And we actually see, it looks like going to be a full Mythic blue jump response here from Sweetie, styling on his second deck choice here. What do you think about picking the Mirror into here? And specifically, what do you think about that means for Sweetie's last deck as well?
Well, it's probably going to be something either he's like edged out some kind of square of a color that he didn't run so much before, or it's like mono red something like mid red maybe, or red control. But if he had red control, I would be a bit surprised that he didn't chose to run with that in this matchup, because it's generally something that has at least a fair matchup against mono blue. So maybe it's just something different again.
Yeah, we could see some of those more teched-in choices. Trainer start for both players should be really nice, but does depend on what the follow-up is. Sweetie getting 2 Prophet of Tides, he's going to be able to really contest anything that he wants on this upcoming turn, depending on the way that Alvar plays here.
Yes, but on the other hand, with the double Prophets, he's kind of lacking the meat, the creatures to contest the board with. He has 1 trainer basically, and that's it, unless he draws into something next turn, which he's really hoping to do, I think.
And we see Alvar kind of stuck in the same spot, doesn't have a follow-up on that turn. Looks like probably going to go for Baru next turn, unless he needs to use the Mirror Phantasm in a good way. But would have really liked even a Battletoads, Waterelli, something else in that spot to get another creature onto the board. And we see a 3rd Prophet picked up for Sweetie. I think you could collect from all 4 wells just using Prophet here if you wanted.
That would be pretty funny, actually. Yeah, like you said, I think it's a bit of a weak start for both players, actually, which is fine, because at least it keeps the game interesting. I'm kind of surprised to see the Baru in Alvar's deck, which is not a classic blue jumper creature, so especially with the Mirror Phantasm as well, maybe his deck is a bit more mid-range cost-heavy.
Baru could just be in there to deny some of those aggressive land placements you think you're weak to. If you think that red or green-red is something that your deck is a little weaker to, you put Baru in. We saw that in the series before of Noafiel was able to use Baru in a really nice way to clear those lands and stop the aggressive positions. So we're going to see at least 1 Prophet here to go off and clear the trainer there. We'll see if we can follow up with anything else, but that does allow Sweetie to get the very important Mystic Beast placement inside the well. Mystic Beast has jump, so not as important of whether you get it inside versus directly on the well, but you definitely don't want it in the double collection spot, so really nice to get that position down this early into the game.
Yeah, absolutely. A bit of a shame that he didn't get to collect with the second movement, but I think at this point it's a fair bargain, especially since most of the mono blue we've seen so far didn't run Falcon Dive. So the Prophet is actually a kind of solid creature, because it can contest a lot of the creatures that the blue decks can put down. Unless it's Mystic Beast and a buffed one, of course.
Yeah, good follow-up there by Alvar. Gets the Trait and Trainer buff onto the Waterelli, 5/5, very good in this type of a matchup, unless you see a Mirror Phantasm come down from your opponent, but that still is an equal trade, so getting a lot of value out of that buff there, and of course that allows him to extend directly for that Mystic Beast spot, and we see Cappuccino's favorite card in the blue here of a Spell Whirl coming out from Sweetie.
Oh. That's not his favorite card, is it?
I think he always talks about it in a blue deck like this, of including a Spell Whirl, just for the extra power that it can give you, even just in terms of a creature or in terms of a good event to use. We actually see him get Snowstorm Lancer down, and the Snowstorm Lancer picks up the buff from that Triton Trainer, so that could actually be something that allows Sweetie to push a lot of damage here.
Yeah, really nice pickup with the Snowstorm Lancer, but on the other hand, I mean, he could have just probably included some kind of jump creature in place of the Spellwell and not be dependent on RNG, if you ask me. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely been working out this time, so I'm not going to judge. And we'll have to see how Alva decides to deal with that 5/7 Snowstorm Lancer, because that's a stat line that Blue traditionally has a bit of a hard time dealing with.
Yeah, the Mirror Phantasm is an option here to decrease the 5/7 and the event synergy down to just a 5/5, much more easy to deal with from whatever else you have, especially that Water Elemental onto the board. Not sure if it's as efficient as you'd like it to be, but that is the play that Alvar goes for, just to reduce the power of that Lancer.
That's the power of having any creature with a stat line of 5 and any HP more than 5 against blue. Basically, you need the Phantasm just to reduce the HP to a manageable level, or you have to trade like two creatures into it, which is also not very attractive as an option.
Yeah, Sweetie actually got Failed Experiment as the other card. We hadn't touched on that from the spell world, but it actually looks very good here. Failed Experiment, Prophet of Tides can allow the other Prophet in the top right corner to move down and clear the Water Ellie. Sweetie can push that 5 damage of the Mirror Phantasm to the orb if he wants and reinforce that with a Colossus directly behind. And at this point, depending on the draws coming out from Alvar, he has no response for that.
Maybe I'm still not 100% convinced that saving 2 Faeria is enough to justify kind of wasting the Prophet, but obviously we can see that Sweetie agrees the tempo gain is big enough as a value to warrant the kind of destruction of the Prophet in order to get out the Colossus this turn, which is insane pressure, definitely.
Yeah, I think in that spot, when you're following up with the Colossus, you're committing to that aggression, like you said, committing to that tempo play where you don't need the Prophet to survive in behind to continue that collection and continue your power. 2 Frogify sitting in hand for Sweetie right now means he can go for even more draws because he's controlling the well in the bottom corner here. So it does get punished if your opponent has something like a Frogify coming out. Then the Mystic Beast can clear the Phantasm, but that Colossus is so big here.
I think that Alva might just have to +1 and play his Colossus defensively this turn or something like that. Otherwise, he's looking at a very steep clock because Sweetie is threatening to do 12 damage next turn. Then it's basically just draw into a Ninja Toad and it's GG. And he has to just get out this Colossus to try and defend.
Yeah, I think as much as we talked about Alvar going for that Mirror Phantasm onto the Snowstorm Lancer as being a good enough play, just because you're clearing away the power of the Lancer, I think positioning it up in the top left corner is really a mistake. It could have come back defensively to set up to kill off the Mirror Phantasm, even if you weren't able to do it with your other creatures there, because now it's sitting up in the top left corner doing absolutely nothing. Alvar had to go +1 for the extra Faeria to play the Colossus, means he wasn't able to play lands and push aggression to Sweetie's Orb. That Colossus, or that Mirror Phantasm, really did nothing this turn.
Yeah, and I think he might just have misjudged Sweetie's ability to go offensive with that unexpected Failed Experiment move. So yeah, it seems like this spell will definitely worked out for Sweetie because he got great use out of both cards he got off it.
Yeah, Alvar with, I think in this spot, maybe you just have to clear the Phantasm with the Mystic Beast, even Triton Trainer, so that you can hopefully get a Ninja Toad, and then Triton Trainer Ninja Toad allows you to clear the Colossus here, but maybe it's just Triton Warrior. You're hoping that something allows you to kill off this Colossus, but it's just looking so bleak right now.
I'm also a bit surprised that he didn't choose to move his Phantasm down one spot, because then I think he might have reached the Colossus with the Prophet next turn, couldn't he?
Would have been if he had moved it down one. Then
sorry.
Yeah.
My bad. Yeah, he was still one space short, but it's definitely like you said. Putting up that Mirror Phantasm up high, it just didn't do anything this game except for collect one Faeria each turn, and that's just not enough to pull back from this aggressive play that Sweetie is dropping down on him.
Yeah, and we see another spell world from Sweetie there, picks up Ancient Herald and Mystic Beast, another 2 great cards in this type of a deck. Mystic Beast immediately able to come down. We see the Ninja Toad there. It's just not going to be enough for Alvar here. Doesn't have all of the tools possible to clear everything from Sweetie, and that's going to be Sweetie taking the game.
Yeah. In the mirror match, no less. So we'll have to see what Alvar chooses now to go up against this mono blue from Sweetie's side, and I'm kind of expecting to see mono red control.
Yeah, we'll ready up and get the players just right back into it. Game number 3 here. Definitely will be interesting to see what Alvar goes for. I mean, the Prophet of Tides plays were so nice from Sweetie to come out and get that aggressive positioning, get a good trade in the mid game there, and then just push that aggression. But it really seemed like Alvar kind of committed too much to that left side. Didn't realize how much Sweetie was going to commit to the right side there. And oh my, we're in for looks, at least at the start, to be a mono red bargain deck.
I have to admit, it's been some time. I mean, I'm not even sure if I can remember any time that Baron Tholga has been competitively viable as a card. It must have been before it was reworked in order to have its effect switched from gift to last words. So yeah, I kind of fail to see how you can get value off that card. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Alva will have some plan to play around it.
One of the big things there of Baron Thulgar is actually you're very, very likely to get something that very much outvalues what your opponent's able to get, unless they get a Colossus here. In playing against Blue Jump, generally if they get something like Triton Trainer, Water Ellie, Battletoads, something 4 cost, maybe even 3 cost if it's like a Prophet of Tides, whereas most of your creatures are going to be 6 and higher. So you can actually gain value off of Baron Thulgar there, but Alvar decides to throw it away. Is going to have Garridan in the opening hand, which is really nice against the early cards coming out from Sweetie, but now that the Triton Trainer buff is going to hit something, we might not see as much come out of that card.
Just a quick update on the brackets. It seems like Zaurokar has actually beaten Lu 3-2, so that means that actually all the top four contestants from last cup are now finished off in the first 2 rounds, which is really surprising to me at least.
Yeah, very surprising. And should point in as well, I think if Alvar beats Sweetie, I haven't looked at the full updated, but that'll be a guaranteed, possibly all new top 4, not of people who haven't finished in that position before in a monthly cup. So very nice to see.
Yeah, really interesting. But anyway, to get back to this match, one thing to point out about Baron Toga is that it's in itself a bit undercosted, understated creature. Like it costs 6 and only has 4/5. Basically, that means you're losing out on a roughly 2 Faeria worth of stats that you could otherwise get. So you basically have to make like at least 3 Faeria profit on average with the card that you get compared to your opponent. So I still think it's definitely a gamble, but we'll see if it's even going to be dropped this match or not.
Yeah, Alvar has a few options here. Could go for something like Ground Shaker Cypher. Could go for Garridan if he chooses to, because that'll clear 2 creatures off. Even Red Devil at this point puts him back up to 7. So you could play Red Devil Ground Shaker. A lot of options coming out here for what Alvar wants to go for. And that's one of the things with Bargain is, especially in even a matchup like this, but pretty much in every matchup, you need to get the maximum value out of each of your creatures. You need them to survive and to collect, because if you fall behind at all, it's very difficult for a deck like this to come back into the game. But a deck like this can snowball very quickly. So a lot of interesting little decisions going to come out from Alvar here on what he chooses to go for, and decides to Red Devil into Queensguard.
I might have preferred to see the Ground Shaker this turn, just to shut down the collection on the right side for Sweetie. Like you said, I think it's bound to be a pretty snowbally matchup. Once one player decisively gets ahead, I think there's a fairly low chance for the other player to come back. So we'll really have to see how these players decide to play the early game. And as we can see, Sweetie is playing also fairly conservatively, because he also probably knows that once he falls behind against the bargain deck, which just keeps busting out expensive creatures for cheap costs, he will have a very hard time to compete with that.
Yeah, and another thing of that, Sweetie pushed so aggressively up the left, he forced Alvar to move his creatures over to the left instead of up to the right, where he had already developed his other mountain on the well there. So 2 creatures coming out for Alvar here, but both of them in a position where they're not going to collect, which means the follow-up is very weak. Of course, we can see now the Bold Bargainer. The average cost in Alvar's hand is 6.5, maybe, or 7-ish right now. So you really need that Faeria collection so that you can snowball these cards together and really take the most value out of something like a Bold Bargainer and then follow up with something else right now. So really nice from Sweetie to deny the Faeria collection as well as setting up his own.
Yes, I think Sweetie definitely saw his opportunity to deny the collection, but on the other hand, it's a play that Alva himself has set up Sweetie to go for by the choice of positioning with his creatures. I think definitely he would have wanted to have one creature on the spot to the right where it could have collected and maybe threaten anything that Sweetie put down there, even if he decided not to go with the Ground Shaker, which I still think might have been a stronger option just to kill off the Prophet.
Yeah, and even in this situation, just blocking that Faeria here leads into a position where, that Red Devil +1 Ground Shaker would have looked really nice to kill off the Prophet, kill off the Colossus on this turn, and give Alvar a lot of value out of those cards, but just not able to go for that because of the block of collection.
And yeah, now with the Aurora pickup on Sweetie, by the way, confirmed full Mythic, even the Mythic Aurora. It's definitely not looking as great for Alva. But on the other hand, once you get the Bargainer rolling, which might hit like a Ground Shaker or something, or a cheap Garden, there's a lot of crazy plays that the Bargain deck can bust out that you're not necessarily able to play around.
Yeah, Alvar on that last turn went for the +1 Faeria, could have gone Cypher, could have attacked in with the Queen's Guard and gone Ground Shaker, but chose not to because he's waiting for that Bold Bargainer. Again, you need so much value. You need to go Bold Bargainer into something else. So Alvar keeping all of that Faeria in hand. Even this turn, Bold Bargainer, if it hits Garridan, which is the most expensive card in Alvar's hand right now, could +1 play Garridan here. So leaving himself with more options by not playing anything last turn. Sweetie continues to flood the board. This is such a good position for the deck that Alvar's running if he had the Faeria to do it, because the AoE is so strong against this deck, but the creatures are just stronger than the AoE right now.
And he definitely doesn't have as much time, because if you look at all the power that Sweetie has on the board, I mean, he basically has to bust out. If he could have, he really wanted to play Garden and Ground Shaker, but I don't think he just has the Faeria for it. He has to go for the Garden.
Yeah, one of the nice things here is Garridan gets set up onto that right side, can double collect because Sweetie's committed everything to the left. Sweetie now not in a position where he's going to be able to hit the orb, just a step away from that. So really nicely getting the value out from Alvar there. Going to be able to follow up possibly with a Ground Shaker next turn and do a lot of damage, but Colossus follow-up. Sweetie is going for this as fast as possible, just knows he needs to against a bargain deck.
Yeah, but the Colossus is just brutal because, I mean, at this point on 0 Faeria, how is Alva going to deal with the 7/7 outside of moving back with the Scar? And even then he can't reach the Colossus this turn, so...
Oh, Ogre Dance is a really big pickup, especially if it hits the Bold Bargainer. We could see a lot of value come out from Alvar here. I think you go for that immediately before anything else, but Ground Shaker just looks really good as well, so maybe that's the play you go for.
I'm not sure actually which. I mean, he could like Ogre Dance to Bold Bargainer into +1 Ogre Battler. I don't know, something crazy like that.
That position just looked like it needed to be like Ogre Dance into Bold Bargainer into Ground Shaker just to get the most value out of your cards. It's such a greedy deck when you play Bargainer. We see the Spell Roll come out from Sweetie here. It gives him 2 less than stellar cards, but I guess it's bodies onto the board at this stage.
I think it's still a very solid pickup because it's the Lore Thief is going to draw into more threats for him most likely, and the Stalker just doesn't really cost him anything, and he still manages to have his Colossus stick on nearly full HP and the Aurora to follow up, so it's a possible lethal next turn.
Yeah, really nice combo of plays there, getting that Darkstalker down for such low value of only costing 1. Oh, the Ogre Dance hits Hellfire, and that Hellfire is not going to be enough here for Alvar to keep him in the game. I should say very unlikely to hit enough.
Yeah, that's the 1 HP that you really don't want to see if you run Hellfire. But on the other hand, I mean, was it really the best idea to move up with Garudan when you're already kind of behind on board pressure? I'm not so sure about that, to be honest.
I think it needed to in that spot. Ground Shaker needed to come down, so you needed to Garridan up so that you could +1 2/6 Faeria and play the Ground Shaker. I think that was your only real way to establish that creature onto the board. The only other option there was moving Garridan down like you were talking about and playing the Ogre Dance and see what you get. But yeah, just if the Ground Shaker was the line that Alvar was going for, you needed to move Garridan up so you could +1 into it. Just unfortunate in the way that it worked out there.
I mean, if you're playing Bargain, you're already playing a bit of a gamble as a deck. So I think in that situation, it just might have been best to go for the gamble, play the Ogre Dance before moving. I mean, he can play Ogre Dance before moving his Garridan and see the outcome. Then he has like at least 50% chance to either hit Ground Shaker or the Bargainer. And then he can either play Ground Shaker for free or play the Bargain and have another shot at reducing the cost of his Ground Shaker. I think it, but yeah, hindsight is 20/20 as always. So I'm not necessarily saying what's the wrong play. I'm just thinking he might have set himself up to get that lethal at a point in the future.
Yeah, of course. I think Ogre Dance, whenever you have it in hand for a bargain deck, you just have to go for it. But here we see Alvar respond with a yellow events, it looks like. Could be a tempo, depending on what we see later on of the draws here. But at least the Outland Ranger, Shaitan Demon start looks to be more of that event synergy type of deck.
Yeah, and I'd say this is generally supposed to be a bit of an even matchup. One thing to point out is that Sweetie didn't get an early Water Elemental, which is definitely what you want, especially if you're running Library, which he's just drawn into.
Yeah, Warrior, another great start here. Depends on what Sweetie can do as follow-up. If he's able to get something like a Elemental to kill off the Ranger once it goes Campfire. But now committing to the other side of the board, I really like that from Sweetie, going away from Alvar so that he can use the Prophet of Tides in the right way to get the trades on his terms versus letting the yellow come to him, essentially.
I'm just really interested in seeing this library tech card in Sweetie's blue list, because it's definitely not something that I've encountered before. It's so heavy on the lands, and generally you don't need that many lakes as a blue jump deck. So I guess it's a bit of a twist that he wants in those matchups which get a bit more grindy to get additional card and Faeria advantage.
I think you're running water elementals just because you're running them for the jump synergy as well. So creating the extra lakes is really nice to get towards your libraries early. Could just be something that's a one of here from Sweetie. Maybe he's running one library, 2 spell whirls instead of something else, just because we've seen the spell rolls as well. I think it's something interesting that you can put in just to get a lot of value. Could even help in terms of the mirror matchup.
Yeah, maybe, and I'm curious to find out if he actually has any kind of healing or something in his deck, because otherwise sometimes you can kind of run low on HP if you drop the library this early and you don't run any healing.
And very nice demon coming down here. Sweetie does have possible clears with both of the creatures that he has on board, but needs movement to do them both. So Alvar putting himself in a position where he thinks Sweetie's not going to have the right tools possible to clear all of this power, and then a charger in behind will be very strong as a follow-up.
Yeah, but I think with the double Prophet and the Ninja Toad and 7 Faeria, Sweetie is set up for a very strong turn this time, and I'm fairly certain he's going to be looking at getting rid of that charger because it's just such a big threat.
Yeah, really nice positioning from Alvar with where his creatures are. Of course, it's still early into the game that you have them set up in the right ways based on the way you've developed your lands, but it doesn't look like Sweetie's actually able to collect more than one extra time and get the good efficient clears. You can use the Warrior and a Prophet of Tides to clear off the charger, collect off that bottom right well, and you can use your Water Elemental plus a Prophet to clear off the Outland Ranger, but I don't think you're able to collect in doing that in any good way.
Yeah, I think we are most likely looking. Yeah, he's apparently going to let the demon survive this turn and just go for the clear on the charger, which I don't necessarily disagree with. But I'm a bit curious to see if he's actually going to let the demon kill off his water elemental. Ah, okay.
Oh, yeah, jump down and kill off the ranger there. It was really nice in that way. Basically played around with the way that Alvar had used the campfire onto the ranger. Essentially, before the campfire had come down, the Triton warrior looked to clear the ranger very efficiently. After the campfire came down, water elemental is going to clear it very efficiently. So really nice that Sweetie was able to find that trade. And now Shaitan Demon sitting on a collection spot probably will need to move into an aggressive line where it can go and hit the orb next turn. You want to put your opponent on that clock, especially with library on the board.
And Choking Sands, which was picked up by Alva, is not really a card that gets a huge amount of value against a blue deck. Generally, you're looking at like getting rid of the Water Elemental or Triton Trainer or something like that. So it's not the preferred pickup. But most likely he's going to be killing off one of the Prophet with that at one point in the future, unless he draws into something more valuable next turn.
Yeah, I don't think, unless you have a position where like a Triton Warrior or maybe a Water Elemental is in a good spot to kill off one of your creatures, then you can Choking that as the 3/3. But like you said, doesn't have a lot of good options in this type of a game of what you can kill off here. Don't see a lot of great follow-up from Sweetie coming out here unless he just wants to drop the Colossus.
But if you're Alva now, would you kill the library next turn, or would you just let it survive and try to race this?
I think you let it survive at this stage. You're going to deal 5 next turn, put your opponent to 11. Library puts them to 9. If both of your demons are able to survive, then you're able to kill your opponent next turn, as well as the library being a body block right now. Sweetie has to move his Prophet around in front or in behind. And now going for this type of a land development, it looks really awkward.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, at this, if we're considering that, then maybe the Choking Sand isn't so bad after all, because any kind of creatures, basically, that Sweetie moves around the library or drops next to the demons, he can potentially get rid of with the Choking Sand, just keep going safe with his demons.
Yeah, and I think even in this spot, Choking Sands could just hit the Ninja Toad as well and stop your opponent's aggression. Soul Pack now picked up because you're in a race situation, probably ends up being a dead card in your hand. So you probably want to go for the draw here. Demon hits face, the other demon moves in for a 2-turn lethal, and you just Choking Sand the Ninja Toad so that your opponent can't do anything with it, whether offensive or defensive next turn.
Yeah, it's just pretty interesting to see how this matchup between Yellow Tempo and Blue Jumpers has evolved into a kind of race to the face, with both players having cast off and damage themselves. I dare say that's not the regular way this matchup plays out.
It's always funny in these because both decks are the real movement heavy decks. You have your jumps, you have your chargers in yellow, and then you have your Prophets for movement versus Flash Winds, even Fanatics coming out from yellow as well. Both players really want to play away from each other, and sometimes you end up in this situation where they've essentially just bypassed each other, both going for the orb now. So I don't really see a way at this stage that Sweetie's going to be able to recover in time.
Yeah, and I think Alva is debating with himself whether he wants to Soul Pack into Windstorm Charger, but decides not to. That's potential lethal next turn. Would you have gone for the Soul Pact Charger in Alva's shoes?
I don't think so, because the Soul Pact puts you just that low enough that you think you might be dead to something like a Ninja Toad.
But on the other hand, it would have been the 2 damage that he might be missing next turn if Sweetie manages to get rid of one of the demons somehow.
7, 4. Oh, yeah, Sweetie has lethal here. Cap just saying it in our Skype chat in behind. I think you can go... Oh, no, yeah, you need the extra Faeria as well. So it's got to be Ninja Toad to kill off the demon and a Falcon Dive. There was a lethal there where Sweetie could have gone for Ninja Toad, hit the orb, Falcon Dive to kill off his own Ninja Toad, and Frogified the Prophet of Tide so that it got the jump and attacked. And then the demon Self-Burn would have killed Alvar there, but unfortunate to go for it. I was also looking at a line where Sweetie could have Frogified his own Prophet of Tides up in the top corner, jumped it around by developing lands, and then double Falcon Dive to kill off one of the demons, but very nice to draw into the Ninja Toad there.
Yeah, but on the other hand, if I'm still thinking if he had dropped the Windstorm Charger, if Alva had dropped the Windstorm Charger on last turn, Sweetie couldn't have gone for the collection spot with the Ninja Taunt and might not even have been able to play the Frogify. So it might just have been lethal. And I think as it is now, it's still such a super close match.
And looking at taking 2 again next turn, Sweetie currently 1 off from being dead, unless there is some form of a haste coming out. Great pickup to find the Colossus there. I was thinking even just to go for the Mystic Beast, but Triton Warrior really represented doing the same thing there. So Colossus picked up. Sweetie surrenders in a position where he was looking to win the game.
Yeah, I don't know either. What the?
Very, very odd ending there, because that was still really anybody's game. Possibly Sweetie thinking that maybe a Wind Soldier was going to come out, or even just Outland Ranger Campfire was likely in that situation and just goes for the surrender there. But that was really strange. Unless something happened from Sweetie's end that he actually was dropped from the game, and it was kind of a win by disconnect surrender instead of just Sweetie surrendering.
Yeah, Acrobat is just saying there might just have been some technical difficulties, so we'll have to wait and see. Because I mean, even if Sweetie expected Alba to have a Wind Soldier, there's no point in not waiting for him to play it, isn't there? Okay.
Oh, must have been Aquablad had a technical difficulty not getting word through from Sweetie that he had. But yeah, very strange, at least not to see the game play out.
I mean,
but it will be Alvar taking the game to even out. Yeah, that looked like. But we'll be into game number 5 here. Sweetie having a green as his final list here. Very interesting. He played green, yellow, sack, and then blue jump, and then now to go with, although should say just seeing those, it could be green, red, Crackthorn as well, but it appears to be more green heavy just with the Grove Guardians in there.
Yeah, Grove Guardian definitely not a card you generally see in green, red Crackthorn decks, although it's a very strong card, for example, against blue, just due to the stat line and the taunt, which can prevent some of the movement from the jump creatures. So we'll have to wait and find out if it's mono green or some kind of green red.
And I think Sweetie keeping those cards off the start makes me think that it's just mono green, because you could have gone for something better essentially coming out. Horsemaster and Grove Caller are complement cards to whatever else you play. So you want one of your other early creatures. Crackthorn generally runs Sagami Warrior or Axe Grinder, and you really want to get one of those down on the board as quick as possible. So very surprised to see Sweetie keep that hand as well.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I mean, I think I would have probably mulliganed at least one of those 2 movement creatures, because they don't really do anything unless you have another creature, like you said, on the board that you can use them with.
An Overgrown Tower as well, so this could be a deck that Sweetie can snowball very well with. Able to get a lot of buffs onto one creature, or just spread out his buffs onto multiple creatures and get the right trades in the right positions. But already having to use one of those movement tricks in the Horsemaster, I think puts him a little bit behind. And now going for the Overgrown Tower to play around Soul Drain as Alvar top decks it. Very nicely done.
Yeah, I think that's a trait of a good player generally, being able to anticipate the possible plays that your opponent could have in hand and then reacting accordingly. I'm personally a big fan of the Overgrown Tower. I think it has flown a bit under the radar just because it's not a creature and green has access to very efficient buffs on one hand and efficient creatures on the other hand. But I think being able to use 3 campfires selectively is definitely a very strong ability to have in any matchup that plays around trading a lot.
And we see Sweetie actually draw into one of the cards that I love talking about all of the time in these type of decks, which is the Famine coming out there. A lot of times in mono blue or mono green, we see Falcon Dives teched in up to 3, depending on your personal preference, just to deal with certain cards in certain spots and deny that extra value from your opponent. But sometimes your opponent plays to a point where they have multiple one life creatures left on the board, and Famine plays really nicely into these decks. So I love seeing that come out from Sweetie.
Yeah, definitely very interesting tech choice. Most likely not the best card against yellow tempo. But it's probably still going to be fairly strong in finishing out any leftover creatures that might be on the board after any trade.
It looks like we're going to see a Grove Caller play here. Move that Grove Guardian down, probably kill off the Demon, and then Voice of Truth it back up to full health. Looks really strong here coming out from Sweetie.
Completely agree, but most likely we are still looking at clearing the Grove Guardian with the Charger next turn.
I think you probably use your last Overgrown Tower charge to buff up the Grove Guardian. I think it's tempting to put it onto the Voice of Truth so that it survives as a 2-attack creature, and it can do other things depending on the way that your opponent's clears everything. But I think getting your Grove Guardian to 7 means that you force that Campfire, you force another event just for the Charger to clear. I think that's really tough.
I don't think it's worth it to use it on the Grove Guardian personally, because he has to know that Alva has at least one Campfire already in hand, and he has to play 2 events anyway in order to be able to kill the Grove Guardian, so he can just choose to use the Campfire as one of them and get the free additional damage that he needs. So I think I agree with buffing the Voice of Truth instead, so it will be able to kill off the Outland Ranger next turn. And the 10-cost Windstorm Colossus, not necessarily what you want to see as a top deck.
Yeah, Alvar is going to get a ton of value here out of this Charger killing off the Grove Guardian, though. Oh, doesn't even have to use... Yeah, that's very strong. Actually playing completely around it. The Soul Drain, the Campfire goes onto the Ranger, kills off the Guardian, and then the Charger is able to fully take over the left side here. I would expect follow-up with possibly both Outland Ranger and Fnatic, but could even just go for the Colossus.
Okay.
Seems good, right? Like, you're in a position where you've cleared Sweetie's strongest creatures. He's down to only 4 Faeria, so no immediate response, at least from the creatures that are on board, or in terms of buffs to clear off your Colossus here. So it looks like Alvar going to deal that 7 damage. Now, we're going to have to see if that pans out over the course of if Sweetie's able to clear it, just because that's committing a lot of resources to really ending the game on the next turn.
Yeah, but with the Horsemaster pickup, he could have traded into the Colossus, but he chooses to get rid of the Collector instead. I'm kind of torn on the play with the Colossus. I think I respect the decision, because I think many players forget that you're also able to play the Colossus for fairly expensive costs, just in a situation where it's useful for you to apply pressure. But on the other hand, as you can see now, he has a 1/7/7 creature, but he's kind of behind on presence on the board, and he can't really collect. So it might just come back to bite him in the butt.
Yeah, and I think that's really big. Sweetie just going to take the 7 there, probably running Rune's Guidance, since we're looking at a more mono green deck anyway. And getting that positioning where he could have traded into the Colossus, but then your Horsemaster dies to the Charger, and instead you set up more creatures onto the board here. So I really like this line from Sweetie coming out. Just Alvar, they're able to nicely have the movement in the end, but I really like Sweetie going for leaving the Colossus alive and forcing bad positioning, I think, from Alvar.
I think it's kind of funny how every time Alvar sets up for a bit of a nice positional play, somehow Sweetie comes back with one of his additional movement effects to like the Horsemaster last turn, this turn with the Sagami Grovecaller pickup, and still manages to kind of what looks like an outplay, but I wouldn't necessarily call it an outplay, because it's also a bit of a great pickup from the top of the stack for Sweetie there, in my opinion, with the second Grovecaller.
Yeah, this is really nice. Now, thing to point out here is 2 Grovecallers gone, 2 Horsemasters gone. So that movement is starting to get a little more limited from Sweetie. And with Alvar having more and more efficient clears onto the side here, he's really snowballing an advantage from a position that looked like Sweetie was going to snowball an advantage here. So it'll be something that we'll have to keep an eye on as the game goes deeper and deeper, because Sweetie possibly is going to need one of those at a time when he doesn't have any left in the deck.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a very enjoyable game to watch because it's one of these matches where like it feels like every turn the pressure just turns around completely and you're like, okay, wow, Sweetie's in a great spot now. And then Alba comes up with a great place and you, wow, Alba's in a great spot now. So yeah, I can't wait to see how it pans out in the end, but definitely looks like Alba is the one on with his finger on the button at the moment.
Sweetie picks up a Verduran Force. Would have been really nice a couple turns ago, really, to contest the board. Kaleem, very aggressive positioning from Alvar there. I don't think he had a good enough way to go for a different Kaleem line, but just very interesting to see it come down in that much of an aggressive spot.
Yeah, and Sweetie going for the Verduran Force now. I think he has to in order to contest the Kaleem, but he still gets to do whatever he pleases with Kaleem now, which is generally a very dangerous prospect for your opponent.
Yeah, could get a clear onto the Grove Caller if he chooses to, and just continue to move his creatures around. But I think Kaleem to the face, and then you can use the Follower and block off the Verduran Force. Looks pretty strong here. You can even use the 4/1 Fanatic and use your other Fanatic in hand to jump across and kill off the Grove Caller, and then you're essentially using your Follower just to body block the Verduran Force. Looks pretty nice in this spot.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think this is the turn you might be looking at the Famine from Sweetie, which he's been waiting for, because it will be able to clear off the Follower and enable him to kill off the Kaleem if he wants to.
Yeah, this is kind of a position where Falcon Dive would be better because you use one less Faeria, but if Sweetie had double Famine in this spot, it would be an unbelievable play because it would kill off both the Ranger and the Fanatic, as well as allowing the Follower and the Follower death and the Verduran Force to come through and kill Kaleem. Just would have been an unbelievable position, but unable to find that, unfortunately, has to go for just the single Famine and then kill Kaleem in behind.
Yeah, I think Alba is still in a solid position because he can go Faith with his Demon next turn if he wants to, and move up his other two creatures to potentially clear off anything that Sweetie might drop next turn.
Now with the Flash Wind picked up as well, he's able to kill off the Verduran Force, and just in the positioning where Alvar has been able to continue to collect off the wells here, Sweetie moving that Verduran Force into the middle means even if Alvar wasn't able to find this movement trick to clear off the Verduran Force here, even next turn Sweetie's response is only generating 3 Faeria from the Verduran Force being in a non-collecting position. So I think this really goes back to the start that Sweetie had of all of those early movement creatures, instead of getting some early creature down like a Sagami Warrior or just something early to play onto the board.
Yeah, maybe he just should have mulliganed for a better opening hand, but on the other hand, with the draws we've seen so far, maybe he just doesn't run any kind of cheap gatherers outside of the movement creature, so I don't know. It's definitely looking like Alba might be able to close out the game soon, and that would mean like nearly complete fall of the old guard, so to speak, of the monthly cups, and a lot of new players going to compete for the win this month.
Yeah, this is really sitting on, it's going to be either the Grove Guardian or Forest Therian Golem coming out from Sweetie just to be a big body onto the board and contest these creatures that Alvar has. But a Last Nightmare could even draw for another Last Nightmare, means that Alvar just has lethal. So we'll see if he goes for the draw here, because that looks really strong as a play to go for just to win the game now.
I don't think there's any harm in drawing and just see what you get. But either way, even without the Last Nightmare, it's looking very solid. And is that lethal?
Oh, there we go. That's lethal. You can Flash Wind the Therian Golem out of the way. Something that most players don't really consider, of using the Flash Wind onto your opponent's creature, just because it's so efficient to use it onto your own. But do you have enough? You could even go for Flash Wind the Demon and then Soul Drain and the Charger. It gets enough event synergy as well.
That's it. GG. Alba beating out Sweetie 3-2.
Yeah, very strong play coming out there. And Alvar will take the series. I really, as much as that game was very interesting from both players, and Alvar taking it in a very nice fashion of really strong positional play, really good clears, I still can't believe Sweetie surrendered on the match to go to 2-2.
When he might most likely just have won next turn. That's crazy. We'll have to find out what happened there.
I can't wait to hear Cappuccino's thoughts on the spell wordle and the blue as well. But just for thoughts in general on that match, let's send it back over to the desk. Vlad Cappuccino, take it away.
Thank you very much, guys. Oh, my camera's frozen as well, so I'm stuck in a very... You're fine, Cappuccino. You're looking good there, but I am frozen for some reason. But yeah, that was a great game. I felt like Alvar played exceptionally well for a player that we don't even know about. He's a new kid on the block, and Sweetie did really well as well. Throwing that one game was a bit odd though. I think he should have played it out.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. There wasn't a lethal on the board, but at the same point, we hadn't seen a Wind Soldier out of Alvar. There was a number of draws he could have for lethal, and so I think Sweetie was just in that situation where he was like, okay, he didn't do anything. He's got 2 cards in hand. It must be lethal, but as it turns out, it wasn't lethal quite yet. So, yeah, a bit unfortunate for Sweetie to toss the game there. But yeah, we saw some really cool cards out of Sweetie. I mean, seeing the spell roll, it's a favorite card of mine. And then we got to see Famine in green was pretty cool to see. We got to see the impact of a 1-of library. I assume it's a 1-of library because we didn't see multiple copies. So pretty interesting to see that. And then what was it? It was Sack as his other deck. And yeah, I mean, Sack, really cool deck. He was running Demons in it, which isn't very popular. And I think Demon was the only... Oh, he's running Deathwish Ghouls, which isn't so popular. Some people run it. So I was really excited to see his lineup. Were you guys excited about that lineup as me?
I thought it was cool, man. Double Famine would have been so good in one of those situations in the last game. You could have double Famine cleared most of the board. He probably would have had a good fighting chance there, but yellow events doing yellow events things, controlling the board very easily, being very efficient, using that mobility to chase down any harvesters or any threats that are starting to trying to get into a more defensive position. The blue mirror was very interesting because I saw the double profits. No, triple profit, sorry. I was just like, how do you win a match with triple profit? It's not very aggressive hand, but the land aggression alone was enough to set up those Wave Crash Colossus. It allowed him the race, and he managed to take the win there. But yeah, it was a great series, and we got to see Alpha, make his debut in a monthly cup, and so far he's done very well.
Yeah, Alvar with a great performance, as you mentioned, and yeah, his lineup is pretty strong as well, so it's going to be interesting to see how far he can make it as a new player into the monthly.
All right, so let's take a look at the bracket. How are we doing here? So the bracket has been updated with all of round of 16, so we know exactly what's going on there. We had Zarakar defeat Lou90 at the top there, claiming his bounty. That was a pretty fantastic performance there for Zarakar. Who else do we have? Imperia Nightingale. So Imperia continuing to go on. Again, another member of the Old Guard doing pretty well there. Teddy as well. Teddy's a player I'm pretty excited for. Continuing his run. He's been a very strong ladder performer over the past 2 months. And then, of course, Alvar defeating one of the most accomplished players in the game and going to go into his first semi-final. So a lot of cool stuff happening there.
Yeah, definitely some surprises in the brackets, and Modnik getting knocked out round 1 was a huge surprise for me. I was expecting him to make it into the finals. One of the strongest players in Faeria. I think his monthly cup performances can speak for that. And yeah, a bunch of surprises looking at looking at the bracket. Lou getting knocked out, as you mentioned. Looking down the list, Trek getting knocked out, but it was to Imperia. Going through it, we see Minakar got knocked out round 1. He was also a very strong player that I expected to make it far in. Mayhem, who's made it far into the monthlies as well, got knocked out. So some very top-notch players getting knocked out early.
And Imperia is the only representative of Team Fairy Tail who have done so well in the last 2 monthly cups. So Team Fairy Tail could still take this tournament. There's still that potential, that hope in the Frenchman. But there's a nice mix now of old guard, new kids on the block as well. Teddy, very accomplished already, even with his ladder performance. but he's still quite new to the game compared to someone like, say, Nightingale, who has over a year of experience now, and he's always done pretty decent in these tournaments, but he hasn't quite found that win yet. So we'll see if he's able to take it.
Yeah, and looking at the bracket just quickly to check, I'm a little bit sad. I just noticed that all of my fellow Canadians were knocked out round 1.
Ah, no. I don't think there's
Feels
any
bad,
Brits
man.
in the bracket. I'm not sure. Oh, Killing Time is in the bracket for the Brits. I don't think Incognito D made it this time round. He's been a strong British performer in the monthly cups. But yeah, we have another match coming soon. We're not too sure yet. This is at the moment of the tournament where things start to slow down a little bit. We have less matches going on, so it can take a little longer to find other games. However, we do have some fun stuff to keep you guys distracted until we find those matches. So we're going to jump to a break. We'll find out how long until we have another game, and then we might bust out some of that fun stuff to keep you guys entertained. So stay tuned, guys. I know I'm frozen on this camera, but I'll try and get that fixed too. And yeah, and we'll be back.